Good morning. This reading is from Rays of the One Light, Weekly Commentaries on the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita by Swami Kriyananda. Do you need a guru? It's entitled. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramhansa Yogananda. Many people scoff at the idea of having a guru. True to human nature generally, they make a virtue of their scoffing. I am responsible for what I do, they announce, responsible for my mistakes as well as for my victories. What would I ever learn if I handed over my development to someone else? To depend on another for guidance would be an act of spiritual cowardice. It would be understandable for someone gifted with some trivial ability, for instance with words, to insist on doing his crossword puzzle without letting anyone else help him. But supposing even in such trivial matters he had no such gift, what virtue would there be in refusing to learn? For that matter, moreover, where do our gifts come from? They are not a native ability. Still, crossword puzzles are hardly an important challenge. What if a person wanted to do something daring, to climb a cliff, for instance, but refused to study the art of mountain climbing? He would climb at the risk of his life. And how much more is risked than physical life in the great adventure of the divine search, where the risk is to salvation itself? Where is the sacrifice in seeking guidance? Even a mountain guide wouldn't presume to do one's climbing for one. His purpose would be only to help the neophyte to climb safely. To have a wise guru is not a sign of weakness, but of plain common sense. All the saints, aware as they are of the hazards of the adventure, agree on the importance of having a guide or guru. And these are the heroes speaking, not cowards or spiritual weaklings. Jesus emphasized the importance of having a teacher by asking John to baptize him. In the Gospel of St. Matthew, chapter 3, we read of his coming to John. Thus, Jesus said to John, "It becometh us to fulfill all righteousness." In the Bhagavad Gita, the 4th chapter, Sri Krishna says, "Open thyself to those who have attained wisdom. They will be thy teachers. Ask questions of them, both verbally and mentally. Serve them faithfully and with devotion." How is the devotee to recognize one who has attained wisdom? The Bhagavad Gita gives us this inspiring description of the sage. By this sign is he known, being of equal grace to comrades, friends, chance comers, strangers, lovers, enemies, aliens, and kinsmen, loving all alike, evil or good. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om, Om, Om.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Nayaswami Dharmini, and this is my husband, Nayaswami Dharmaraj. It's very nice to see old and new faces, although I don't mean old, but maybe I should say old and new friends. Today's topic is probably the question on everyone's mind who reads Autobiography of a Yogi. If you haven't read it, it's kind of our core book here, I would say. Paramahansa Yogananda wrote it in 48 or something like that. And it is now considered a spiritual bestseller in the world, the #1 spiritual bestseller in the world, which is quite a feat. And many people on different paths, not just those following this path, which is about Kriya Yoga, read that book and become enlightened on a certain level or awakened on a certain level. And it starts their spiritual path, or at least supports their thoughts. And in the book, for those who have read it, and unfortunately I'm not going to read it today, there's not time, but there's 2 points of reference to this topic, which is, well, there's many points, but two I'm going to make. One is when Yogananda finds his guru, Sri Yukteswar. It's very touching. Is it in Kolkata? Benares, yeah, okay. So he's walking through India, and if any of you have been to India before, you know how the streets are laid out, and this was a dirt road. He's walking down there. He goes past an alleyway, and he sees someone who catches his eye on a very deep level, and he can't move any farther until he turns around and heads in that direction. It's very touching. Even just saying a few words about it, you know, I don't want to get choked up. The other beautiful guru finding chapter is when Lahiri Mahashaya finds his guru Babaji, or shall we say Babaji finds Lahiri Mahashaya. Again, we see the beautiful reunion between guru and disciple. But that's not the only thing this is about today. The question is, do we need a guru? So many people coming here today might not have one. And Swami Kriyananda has a very simple answer for it. No, you don't need a guru if you don't want to find God. Yes, you do need a guru if you want to find God. And it's a bit of a spiritual law. And lest those of us who have a guru say, oh, well, you know, today's lecture, do I need a guru? I already have a guru. No problem. One thing we do as disciples who already have a guru, we have to recommit ourselves daily. We have to recommit ourselves minute by minute. In every situation we're in, we have to say, do I need a guru in this situation? It's so easy to get caught up with little closets inside of ourselves that the door, sorry, Yogananda, you cannot come through that door. You know, I'm going to keep this door closed. This door I don't need any help with. Thank you very much. Sometimes we don't even know that's what we're doing. So in whether we're new, whether we have a guru already, this question is very important for us minute by minute in our lives. And you know, Americans have really great qualities and some not so great. Just like each country has its own strengths and weaknesses. And in America, after especially having lived in India, where spirituality permeates and people don't even question whether someone needs a guru. Not very many. The majority of people do not do that because it's in their cells. They're educated at an early age about this, and also as a people, and I don't know why, the intuition is just incredibly strong. It's valued somehow, it's nurtured, it's in the soil. There's probably more saints per square inch there than in many other places. Perhaps maybe Italy also at least has a lot of saints who have left their body per square inch, but that counts also because you've got the vibration of the saints who've left their bodies. And so that vibration has permeated into people, and there's just a knowing on a deeper level the importance of it, and it's part of the culture. But here, there's a lot of other things though. There's like the caste system, and there's things like, you know, you're stuck at the bottom if you're at the bottom, and that's trying to change now. But it's a class system that existed in medieval Europe. It's throughout Europe even today too. It's not just in India. It's throughout the world actually. But America is very unique because we just have that strong independent spirit that says, I grew up with a penny in my pocket and that's it. And now I'm maybe president of the United States. I'm not saying Barack Obama was that way, but we have that independence, and with that independence is this willpower that comes with it, and that is a strength. That willpower that I can do anything. In fact, people who come here, you know, I remember I kind of thought this for a while. You start the path and you think, okay, I've got Kriya Yoga now. I guess I'll be enlightened next year. I guess I'll be free next year because I'm going to, meditate this much per day. And it says if you do it this many times per day, then I'm, and you've got the willpower and you say, I'm going to do it. And that is excellent. But there's also another thing Americans have, which is cynicism. Just this kind of, and I see a lot of it in LA, and I don't know if it's because it's a big city, and, I think you kind of have to have a little box around you to walk around with so many people around you. There's kind of a closeness. I went into Barnes & Noble the other day. I couldn't believe it, and it must have been the management. I want to say it's the management and not LA, or, I don't want to generalize LA at all, but because there's so many pockets of amazing spiritual people too, we've found. But anyway, I walked in this Barnes & Noble, everybody was just stone-faced. You asked a question, no. Just like, whoa, what is this? I couldn't tell if people were like trying to be cool and I wasn't in, or, I just couldn't tell what that was, but it was closed. I'll just say it's closed. And hopefully, in their family, with friends, they're not that way. But I felt sorry for them. And luckily, we know we can just be friendly anyway. And, oh, well, you're that way, fine. But there's that cynicism that can be there. And that can be something that makes us immediately say, I don't need a guru. And then we hear about cults and things like that. But when we're cynical, when we think the negative of things, when it's a instantaneous reaction in the mind, the critical mind that comes up, the heart has to be closed to do that. Try being critical and cynical with your heart open. It's pretty darn hard. So the heart has to be closed. What do we lose when the heart is closed? We lose our intuition. And what do we lose when we lose our intuition? The ability to trust. And how can we accept a guru in our lives when the heart is closed and the intuition is gone and we can't trust? And it was interesting. We were at a picnic. Was it a picnic? I guess a gathering the other week with other leaders of different spiritual paths in LA. And I was so happy to meet these people because we're new. We haven't even been here a year. And to find people who really care about the spirituality in LA, it was like opposite of, we live in Hollywood here. So walk down the streets of Hollywood, you just feel the vibration of Hollywood and the message. But to be able to meet these people who were spiritual was just a blessing to have contact with these people and know a lot of them are involved in the mayor's office, and that was really nice to know too. But there was this one guy, he was jolly and happy, but there you could see him looking at Dharmaraj and I, kind of trying to figure us out, because we're the new kids on the block. And so he was looking at us and trying to finally. And he made a few comments and jokes, and he was kind of like, well, we'll see about that. There was just that attitude about things. And yet he was funny and charming at the same time. So, it wasn't like you disliked the guy or anything. And then finally he looked at us and said, well, you're bright-eyed, but, you're going to become jaded like me sometime. Or you haven't been jaded like me yet. And I was sad for him because I've heard that comment before about something like becoming jaded is something you become because you have to harden yourself against hard and bad experiences. And I love a comment Haridas says. It's thick skin, open heart. That's what we need to learn. We need to keep the heart open, and if we have that thicker skin, then when those difficult things happen, we learn to have it bounce off of us. And not only that, the deeper we go into our path, the more we're in our spine, the more we create a bigger magnetism, the more difficult experiences, yes, happen, but the less we're shaken. Now, God always seems to find those things that really shake us to the bone, because we're not free yet, and we need to have those things that shake us to the bone. That's okay. This is where, oh, I know what else I want to say. Okay, so the other thing about having that closeness is that fear that there's a cult or something like that. And in fact, I had a friend who was part of a cult. I don't know, it must have been 30 years ago now for her, and it was someplace in Arizona or whatever. And that person really took advantage of people. Apparently he was charismatic and took advantage of people's fears and weaknesses and held that against them. It was like he knew the fears and weaknesses and then manipulated with that. And again, I don't think she's a stupid person at all. We all have our wounds. We all have our blind spots. But again, to not trust our intuition. This is, again, the reason to have the heart open, to have the intuition to discern whether you're entering into a situation that is safe, whether it is a place you feel comfortable being. You have to listen to that intuition. And so on one hand, we want to kind of be protective and say, don't draw me in. On the other hand, we have to be open and actually feel. And that the cynicism or the fear and everything is an instantaneous reaction, whereas the intuition takes a little time. We're sitting there, we're sitting with it. We're allowing it to come in as much as feels comfortable, and we sit with it. It's a very important thing to think about. And even like when we're driving our cars, we can even say, hey, is my heart open? Just checking in, is my heart open? And it's that receptivity we get by having the heart open that will draw the guru. I wanted to read something. This is from Essence of Self-Realization, that Swami Kriyananda collected quotes of Paramahansa Yogananda, either in his mind or in notes, and created a book about it. It's just wonderful. So it's just quotes of Paramahansa Yogananda. People who are still locked up in the cage of ego often view the prospect of having a guru as a threat to their personal freedom. They don't realize that freedom is exactly what they don't have at present. The guru's role is to open the door of the cage. If a disciple, finding himself still attached to limitation, cries, "Leave me alone, I like my nice little nest of pleasures and desires," the guru won't insist. He will say simply, "I came because you called me. Otherwise, I would not have troubled. It wasn't my need that brought me, it was yours. So until you call me again, I will wait." Accepting a guru isn't the assumption of a burden. It isn't a menace to a person's free will and happiness. It is the greatest blessing that you or anyone can possibly have in this world. Incarnations of good karma are required to attract the help of a true guru. God sends the seeker indirect guidance at first through books and lesser teachers. Only when the desire for him is very strong does he send help in the form of a self-realized guru. It is no favor to the guru if the student accepts him. Rather, the student must have prayed very hard in this lifetime and in former lives to have earned so great a blessing. It isn't that you need to go out looking for a guru. The Lord will send him to you, or else draw you to him when you are spiritually ready. And so sometimes we think, do I need a guru? But the other question is, am I ready for a guru? Have I developed that receptivity in the heart? Have I had the experience that lets me know I'm ready? When I was an engineer, I was exploring the path of spirituality. I had been meditating for many years, but on my own. I didn't really have a technique. And I was feeling good from it. I was feeling more peace and everything. But I got to this point where I just felt empty inside. And part of it, I think, was the work, which was really object identified and it wasn't people oriented. But The other thing, too, is I just had reached a point in my life where I felt like I had tried it my way a long time, and something wasn't working. You know, and we get to that point where we've had all the control, you know, I was part of a church at the time that is a good church, actually, but they don't believe in a guru, and it's not really oriented that it would be, but one of the things, a few of the things they really believe in is like manifestation and abundance and right thinking. You know, if you think the right thoughts, you can create your life. And at the time, I don't know if you remember Shakti Gawain's book, Creative Visualization, was really popular, and people were really just into creating their lives, you know. And I actually kind of felt like, well, I don't feel like I created my life, but my life was kind of the way I had pictured it earlier, and I'm still not happy. And I had all the material things, but still something wasn't quite working. But you know, when you have that kind of life where you create it, it can kind of create a fair weather religious perspective or a fair weather spiritual perspective, because I found that some of the belief around I create my reality, there's still the I create, even though it's praying and calling on God, but there's a little bit of the God loves me because I found the parking place today in the front of the building, and you know, this thing happened perfectly, and so I know God's grace was involved, and this thing happened just like I wanted it to, and so I know God is supporting me. But then suddenly something bad happens, and it's like, wait a minute, you know, and a lot of the times it's, okay, what did I think wrong that made this happen? And okay, I'm really uncomfortable now. Something bad happened. I've got to start controlling things now, okay? I didn't have enough control in that, so I've got to start controlling my circumstances. Or, you know, you're making me unhappy, so I think I'm going to start controlling the people around me too, because if they were just that way, then I would start feeling better. And the guru's kind of missing from the picture there. And I'm generalizing here. This isn't, of course, everybody's process, but we find through trying out these different things, controlling circumstances, controlling people, you know, pretty soon we're quite tense in life, because it's just either the way we want it and we want to keep it that way, or we kind of feel some rumblings and things are going to change and we don't know if we want that. Sometimes you can feel change kind of coming from far away, and you don't want that. It's like, forget it. I don't, you know, stay away. I'm happy with the way my life is. And I was kind of that way when I was an engineer, to a point where I came to Ananda because a friend took discipleship, and I wept the whole time. I wept and wept. And I had been doing some spiritual seeking with some other gurus. When that happened, when I came to Ananda, I just thought, whoa, and I didn't come for many months after that. I just thought, what is going on here? Why am I feeling pulled? Something must be wrong. Why am I feeling so pulled? So anyway, we get to that point of control, but that's a level of experience we have, because sooner or later something comes up and blows up that control. And it feels horrible in the moment, but thank God it happens, because we can see, look, we're not fully in charge. It's not possible. And that fair weather spirituality where, you know, you can even get mad at God for making that happen. You know, if God makes good things happen, then that's pretty bad when he makes bad things happen. And that's hard too. And, you know, how do I work on that? It's kind of missing the concept of karma, that bad things can happen now because we put that in motion lifetimes ago. And we may have even corrected the original wrong thought or action, but the karmic wheel is still rolling. And we have to somehow get hit, you know. Now, if you're directly in your spine and you're hit, then you're not creating new karma when that karma comes at you. But anyway, having the thought of karma in the whole picture allows us to relax even a little bit more, because then we know that, okay, there is some kind of a universal balance going on, that when a bad thing happens, it's not just something I created last week when I, bumped that car in front of me and then drove away really quickly, or, that kind of a thing. Instead, we can have a bigger picture view of these things. And so when we let the guru in, it's a whole new ball game. We've come to the point where we have this receptivity, the heart is open, and we can feel the grace that comes with that. Discipleship is not easy. The path of Kriya Yoga is not easy. I think sometimes the reason why some people get a little afraid also, and I'm wondering if I felt that way when I was an engineer and first came, it's a committed life and it's a disciplined life. And we're not all ready for that. And so sometimes I think if people go, no way, it's like there's not space in their life in the moment, or they're not willing to make space for that discipline that's required. If you notice, there aren't any Ananda mega churches out there. It's not an easy path. On the other hand, it's a joyful, beautiful path too, with just so many more options in life. You'd have to come around a little bit more. Part of also choosing a path has to do with how the disciples are, whether you feel a resonance with the disciples. So you may meet the teacher and feel a deep affinity. You may meet many teachers and feel a deep affinity. But if you don't feel an affinity with the disciples, it's something to listen to, something that doesn't, for instance, when I was on the spiritual path and going from guru to guru to guru, I went to Guru Mai and Thich Nhat Hanh and Satchidananda and all these different gurus, and really felt beautiful blessings from each one of them. But it wasn't until, I had already had the experience with my friend at Ananda, and that was in my mind, and shortly after that I found Autobiography of a Yogi, so that was in my mind. But I wasn't consciously thinking, okay, who's my guru? And I went to Guru Mai, she's in Oakland, and she was tapping people on the head with her peacock feather, and huge long lines. I don't know how many people were there. And we came along the line, she tapped me on the head, I went back to my seat. I just wept for a long time, and suddenly I had very strongly in my head, Yogananda is your guru. And it was like, whoa. So here was this other guru who tapped me on the head, and she helped me see that Yogananda was my guru. And from that point on, even though I was like really new and what does this mean, that deep sense of knowing never left. So we can talk on and on and on about, do you need a guru, and here's why not, if you're not ready, and yet it all comes down to this knowing. It all comes back to that intuition, and listening to the intuition and feeling that depth. I want to end with this reading. Well, there's a couple things I want to do. First, just for all of us, I want to read the prayer that we read at discipleship. It's a very beautiful prayer. I'm not going to read the vow, but I'm going to read the prayer. Divine Mother, I came before thee today, having long sought thy eternal light, long pondered the eternal truths, long followed the winding path that leads to thee. I have walked with my own strength, all too seldom with thine. I have walked with the thought, I want this from life, these answers, that guidance, this pathway or that. But I have seen that, as often as I made claims on life, it eluded me. As often as I presumed on thy will, it turned away from me. Ah, too long, Mother, have I sought thee for myself, not for thy love. I know now that without thy strength added to mine, infusing it, I shall never find thee. Thine is the power, the grace, the infinite glory. With loving faith now I seek thee through the ray of thy light that thou hast offered me. I will ascend to thee, not by my power alone, but by the power of thy infinite love. I am thine, Mother, be thou eternally mine. And so Yogananda talks about that if you come here or come to a place that has a true guru and it is not yours, you can pray to that saint and they will help you find your own path. And anyone who comes here, we welcome everybody. You don't have to be a devotee of this path to come. But by coming here, hopefully you can deepen your spiritual life, and then if it's not your path, be led to your path. The beautiful thing about gurus is you can never tell anybody else who their guru is. So there's no proselytizing. We can't say, oh, you know, if you just came here, you'd finally find your freedom. You know, you can't do that. It's got to be your own. And it's so free to have it that way. I mean, I never did like people who think their way is the only way. But your way is the only way, you see? So, God bless you.
Peace gave us the mountains, peace gave us the sky. Nightly when starlight enfolds us, peace is its lullaby. Peace gave us this morning, peace gave us the sun, bird songs that call us to welcome day and fresh labors begun. Amen. Peace gave us the seasons, peace gave us the rain, cool clouds that gather to bless us, mist hands that soothe away pain. Amen. Peace gave us our heart's love, peace gave us our smiles, rays of thy presence within us, light that all strife reconciles.